they have not really traded for a cornerback, but considering the injury to Jalen Watson, the fact that he's essentially done for the season after having a great 6-game stretch in his career, look, I have all the trust in Dave Merritt. I think Chiefs fans should have trust in Dave Merritt to pick the right guy, whether that's Joshua Williams, Najee Johnson, Chris Roland Wallace, if you just realize who he was on Sunday. But with that being said, if you feel like you need another person to help mitigate, some of the inconsistent play you might get between now and the deadline, that's another option as well. I don't know who that player would be necessarily, but again, that's a position where you could maybe strengthen just a little, where it might not cost you a ton if you get a player who's, say, on their rookie deal.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Welcome back to 21 Questions, our podcast where you guys ask us questions and we hear various hosts of different KCSN shows and personalities answer them for you guys. As always, if we're pulling these questions from the KCSN Discord, if you are listening to this and not in the Discord and want to get some questions in, one, if you can find a way to message or ask somebody that works at KCSN, we can probably get your question on there. But if you want to make it easier, you just go to the kcsn.substack.com, you subscribe, and in your welcome email, you will get an invite to the KCSN Discord where you will have the ability to ask your own questions as much as you want, as many times as you want in a week, because we got these coming at you guys weekly. So we are excited for this today. I am super excited to be here joined by Nate Taylor this fantastic Friday morning. Nate, how are we doing, buddy?
Doing excellent. As I told you right before we push the button, like I try to stay away from the Discord so I don't know any of the questions. So either thank you or you're welcome or I'm sorry to these lovely people who have dedicated such time to asking us such thoughtful questions to where I can't give them the answers they probably want. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm sure you were going to do fantastic. As always, I love getting to do this with Nate because, we don't get to talk a ton. Usually when I come back into town, you got real job stuff going on. You got the family you're busy with. So I don't get to see you a lot when I come back into town. So I like getting to sit down with you and do these. These are always fun.
Yes. We should do more things. Problem is life.
Oh, man. Tell me about it.
Kids, I don't have a life, okay? I have a life. I don't have a life, if that makes sense.
Right. Oh, I get it. Everybody out there with kids also gets it too. Like, everybody gets it. All right. We're going to start this off I'm going to start with a question that actually came in this morning because I feel like it's pretty pertinent. I don't want to say breaking news because that seems like a little bit too much. That seems a little overzealous for what happened. But the Chiefs do move some money around Jawaan Taylor's contract. They restructure it. Buys them like roughly a little over $5 million in cap space for this year by spreading out some of his base salary into a signing bonus over the next 2 years. So the question we got from Justy RK is, with the freed up cap space after a Jawaan Taylor restructure, do you think the Chiefs are going to make another move before the trade deadline? I want to specifically, it does ask about the trade deadline, not just signing a free agent here.
Okay. Yeah. So there's a chance, and I do believe that this move is sort of twofold. It does allow you to obviously take on DeAndre Hopkins' contract, the portion that is not being paid by the Tennessee Titans. And also it gives you some flexibility if you do feel like you want to make a small trade between now and Election Day, November 5th. The trade deadline, I believe it's 3 p.m. Central Time. So, a couple scenarios. Let's say, and again, I'm just giving scenarios. We know how wacky and how ridiculous the season has been. But if for some reason there's another injury to the receiving position, then okay, you can maybe make another trade. I know we discussed it on Only Weird Games right before yesterday about, hey, this just seems like a perfect time on November 5th to trade for DeMarcus Robinson for like our 6th for your 7th. And then he went out and scored 2 touchdowns. So the Rams won last night. They're obviously still in the mix, very much so in their division. but you could do something like that. Another thought I had too is, they have not really traded for a cornerback, but considering the injury to Jalen Watson, the fact that he's essentially done for the season after having a great 6-game stretch in his career. Look, I have all the trust in Dave Merritt. I think Chiefs fans should have trust in Dave Merritt to pick the right guy, whether that's Joshua Williams, Najee Johnson, Chris Roland Wallace, if you just realize who he was on Sunday. But with that being said, if you feel like you need another person to help mitigate, some of the inconsistent play you might get between now and the deadline, that's another option as well. I don't know who that player would be necessarily, but again, that's a position where you could maybe strengthen just a little, where it might not cost you a ton if you get a player who's, say, on their rookie deal. So those are two scenarios. I don't know if there's like a, as I said before, the Chiefs were probably going to make a trade. That has, of course, happened. But I'm not sure if they're going to make a trade between now and the trade deadline, but at least it gives them, a chance to get in the mix if they feel like it's necessary, maybe a day or two before the deadline.
Yeah, the Chiefs are in an interesting spot. And I think overall it's kind of, it's hard to follow a little bit because the Chiefs, a lot of the reports we got coming out of the trade for DeAndre Hopkins was the Chiefs were really set on not giving up a first or a day 2 pick in this whole process. So they go out and they trade a conditional 5th that could become a 4th. Well, guess what? That means you can't use those 2 round picks in a trade for somebody that you were considering making. So you're looking at a late day 3 pick, or you have to go back on the idea that you didn't want to give up a day 2 pick and give up a day 2 pick to get a corner, a defensive end, whatever the position might be. So they're not dealing with a lot of draft capital, so to speak. I mean, to work for a trade, if they are going to make another deal, that makes it a little dicey. But then I look and I think about it, like the Jalen Watson injury really does stick to me because, there's a competition. I trust Dave Merritt. There's been all these competitions, but guess who's won the competition? Every year those guys have been in that competition. It's been Watson. And this year, you had finally seen like the culmination. That development was really paying off. He was playing great, so much so that Najee Johnson wasn't really eating into any of his reps at all. He was clearly the next guy in line. Joshua Williams had almost fallen entirely out of the rotation until they needed him in certain spots. So do they think that they need that next guy? Do they think they need someone to step in because Watson had clearly separated himself so far? I don't know. We'll have to see. They have, another 2 games to figure that out before they would have to move. So I'm with Nate here. I think this is done in case there is a move that they need to make in the upcoming weeks, in case there's a free agent that's out there. I mean, we're not talking necessarily free agents here, but like Troy Hill's a slot corner that was just cut earlier this year. I don't know how much money he would cost, but he's been a good slot DB for a while now. If McDuffie no longer has the flexibility to kick inside because you're down an outside guy, someone like him, I don't love the player, but Xavier Howard is still technically a free agent if you wanted to bring in just a guy. I don't love it, but it's just there might be guys out there for the money, right? So I think it's to continue to be a player. I think that's the right way to look at it, Nate.
Yeah, and the last thing too is if you don't make a trade at the deadline, every little bit of money helps, right? So you can roll that money over into next year's salary cap, which is what most teams do when they're rebuilding. But even for a contending team, just to have a couple extra million that you can roll over towards next year's salary cap will help, even if you don't make a move. So by Jawaan Taylor agreeing to this, similar like they've done with, Joe Tooney kind of comes to mind. They restructured his contract. So it sort of solidifies your spot in next year's team. It sort of solidifies that, hey, if you're healthy, you're probably going to be the starting right tackle again. You don't want to restructure it a couple times, but he does, help the team, whether it's, in this season or obviously towards next season, because I was actually doing this before they made the DeAndre Hopkins move, where all of a sudden, Matt, I'm thinking like, okay, not only do they have any receivers of anything that matters in 2025, they only have one guy that I could say is going to line up and play immediately, and that's, of course, Xavier Worthy, but they need help at guard because obviously the Trey Smith element is involved. They're probably going to need help on the defensive line, so you actually might be a bigger player in free agency next year at the defensive line position. And so you need as much money as possible to be in the mix Because again, we're only 6 games into this season, but I'm already starting to think about 2025, that salary cap sheet. Obviously, you're going to do the same thing you did with Patrick, with his contract to give you even more space. But like, hey, if there's no Travis Kelce next year because he retires, hey man, we need to roll over as much money possible to sort of shore up any sort of holes we have at the position. So again, Jawaan Taylor did the Chiefs another favor today.
That's notable. That's worth noting. We got a couple more that were coming from earlier in the week, but they are related to the Chiefs post DeAndre Hopkins trade. So just about more moves. Andrew Schnicker asked, is Deontay Johnson still a possibility? And he had a follow-up about Xavier Howard with Jalen Watson being out. Listen, I want to go ahead and get it out there. As much as I would love Deontay Johnson to be a Kansas City Chief, because I think that he is, when I watch him play, that guy is a Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver. Like, I can just see he fits exactly what they like. I think you're going to be waiting until next year to have a shot at that. He is a free agent again, worth noting, and they were interested once. Don't know how much they'd pay. I don't think there's a possibility they trade for him. We briefly glossed over Xavier Howard. I think it's a very low chance. It seems like he would be somewhere if teams thought he could play football at this point in time.
And he's also more of a Vic Fangio style corner than, hey, why don't you run a lot of press man? Like, why don't you get in the mix there in that 5-yard range? I'd be a little bit surprised, but again, maybe another injury sort of elevates that potential, possibility, right? But until then, I can't necessarily foresee Howard being in the mix for this team.
Yep. We got Hokey Chief here. Does Veach look at Mahomes in the offense these last 2 years and start making sacrifices on defense to sign more skill guys? So essentially, do we think the Chiefs have trended towards getting younger and better on defense at a sacrifice of some offensive skill players? And do we see that change based on the way things have gone?
Yes. If you've been watching, if you've been keeping track, based on where they're picking in the draft, I remember having this conversation with Veach during the Super Bowl last year or in the lead up to Super Bowl. Just the idea of like, this was like kind of their plan, but it really like wasn't. It was just like, hey, who's at the bottom of every round? Good defensive players. Like, the league went to such a crazy degree in the draft this year. What was it? The first 14 picks were offensive players.
Yeah.
Obviously, you throw in 6 quarterbacks, but still, like, that is abnormal. But it is becoming a trend where, like, there's no reason why Trent McDuffie should be available at 21, but he is, And so they've made the Tyreek Hill trade to have more balance on the roster, and then with their development, with their scouts, with the coaching staff staying intact, and they've really fine-tuned this to where all of a sudden, yeah, a lot of the good young talent is on defense, and those are the guys who are available during the draft. And if you have a high draft grade and they're character players and they're not going to be like divas, then like, yeah, you take them and you develop them. I mean, Leo Chenal is a perfect example, right? So is Jalen Watson. Like, I mean, all these guys have been contributors. So now you're going to have to sort of reverse course to some degree. And they've tried to hedge it as best they can. And I mean, I know we forget this, but Hollywood Brown was supposed to be like a big contributor. I have written in The Athletic that they're going to sign a receiver and they're going to draft a receiver. And they did both. And guess what, kids? They're going to sign a receiver and draft another one next year. So at some point, there's got to be, more of the pendulum leaning towards offense, right? I mean, it was shocking that they did nothing at the running back position all offseason, and they've gotten away with it. They somehow got away with it again. Now, that's a credit to the front office, because I was like, can't you draft somebody in like the 5th, 6th, 7th round? They're like, nah, we're going to take Carson Steele and transition them from a running back to a fullback back to a running back. And you're like, okay, I guess it works. But yeah, that has been the trend. And I do agree that like they're going to have to get more offensive minded, because Mahomes is in the prime of his career. He's close to 30. He's not 30 yet, but let's really like, I mean, as much as they've tried, and I went over this on Only Weird Games on Tuesday before the trade of like, hey man, they've tried everybody. They've had 10 people. They tried to trade for Deontay Johnson, and the Steelers said, stop it. So they've tried, but they got to try a lot harder, and they got to put a bigger emphasis on it, which means you usually got to trade up in the draft if that trend remains true, right? Where even if it's a terrible draft class, which thank you, Tucker D. Franklin, the D stands for it's a declining draft class. You still got to trade up and get another guard, another running back, another tight end, another receiver.
Wow.
You just have to, and then you have to throw more money on offense in free agency and hope that guy, doesn't get hurt on the first snap of the preseason. So yeah, we should blame the Jacksonville Jaguars. What have the Jags given us all year? Disappointment. Ooh. I mean, just like,
what do you do? What do you do here, Jacksonville? Like, what's going on? Come on, you're hanging out overseas for like 14 days. Like, come on,
yeah, you took my man crush. You hurt Hollywood. You haven't won a game that isn't against the Patriots in God knows how long. Like, and they drafted Ryan Thomas Jr., who we all loved. And
he's good. He's good at football.
He's really good.
I agree. Like the Chiefs, I don't even know if it was like particularly planned, but like the way you said it, there just happened to be a lot of good talent that fell to them on the defensive side of the draft. And I remember going into that draft where they got Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis, Veach was asked like, hey, you guys say we don't take corners until the end of the draft, and you guys don't say we don't pay corners. Well, watch this. And at that point, it had been true. But he said,
"That was me."
No, okay, that's good. Yeah. So Veach says to you, he's like, "Hey, Nate, well, guess what? There's not good corners there at the end of the first round." And then all of a sudden, now there is at pick 21, right? So I don't think it was purposeful that they all of a sudden started having all this talent influx on defense, but I do think they wanted to get Steve Spagnuolo some guys that he felt like he could work into his system, and that happened. And the development's gone great. Offensively, they definitely haven't paid as much attention. There's been a little bit of this offensive line we built, plus Patrick Mahomes, plus the coaching we're getting from Andy Heck, Andy Reid, and this guy named Travis Kelce. They'll figure out the rest, right? They're going to make the rest work. They have. They won back-to-back Super Bowls. They've made it work, but you have started to see the talent leak on that side of the ball, I think, is starting to show up. And it really hurts when you unfortunately miss on your wide receiver of the second round in Sky Moore. Then your next wide receiver and Rashee Rice gets hurt when he's clearly set to have a great year. And those things kind of matter a little bit. And Xavier Worthy is talented as he might be, and like the future's still plenty bright. Like he's not a guy that was going to come in right away, especially once you remove the top two passing options on the team and be this high volume target getting wide receiver. So they're still adding, they've still tried to add talent to that offensive side of the ball. It's just been a little bit more of a sprinkle on top of all the rebuilding of the defense. And a couple of those guys are hits like Rice. Some of them aren't, like a Sky Moore. And I think you do see another turn next year. Maybe Hollywood Brown comes back for another year because he's a free agent and he didn't really get approved a lot this year. Maybe, guys, we mentioned earlier, Deontay Johnson said to be a free agent. The Chiefs have been interested more than one occasion for Deontay Johnson, and they just haven't been able to get him. Maybe he becomes a wide receiver for the Chiefs, especially knowing that Rice might miss some time. So we'll see. I do think there will be another pivot to the offensive side of the ball, though. That's a good one here. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
One thing really quick on Hollywood. Let me see if I can find this real quick on my computer, because one thing I would say if I was his agent, which I'm not, what was his deal? I'm looking it up here. It was 1 year, but what was it, a maximum of 11 million? What was it?
I think it wasn't it like 7 up to 11 or something, or maybe it was 7 up to 9.
Yes.
It was pretty low.
Yes, it was up to 11 million, right? Okay, so here's where it gets tricky, right? Because he didn't play this year. Let's just say that doesn't happen. Or let's say he plays 2 games and, the playoffs are a bonus. And I think fans should sort of consider it that. Like, as much as it is exciting to think of the possibility of like, hey, we're going to get Hollywood back, in the swing of things, and then like he's going to take us over the top. Like, that could happen, but, we can't guarantee it. So you have to sort of be mindful of that. If I were Hollywood's agent, I would say, look, man, I'm ready. My guy's ready. He's obviously excited. He still loves and desires to play with Patrick Mahomes for a full season, right? So what we're going to do is we're not going to do the same deal because his base salary, as I look on over the cap, is $3.5 million. That was basically what was guaranteed to him, but his cap number was mostly like at $7 million, right? Let's do another 1-year deal, $9 million, and need all of it to be guaranteed. Now, the Chiefs will say, no way, that's not happening. It's got to be incentivized to some degree. Sure, we can have some per game roster bonuses and, some whatever. Because he's already been in the system, because he showed in training camp how good he could be. Yes, there's obviously an injury history. Don't even let him think about free agency. And don't let another team come in and say, oh, let's get into a bidding war. So I know that sounds high, but obviously the cap goes up every year. And if you want to make an investment into Hollywood, it needs to be more than obviously $3.5 million guaranteed next year. And, because it was such a freak injury, you want to sort of solidify the loyalty and the partnership. And so I think people should think about another 1-year deal, and the money might actually be more going into 2025 than it was into 2024 for some of the reasons I mentioned. Because him and Patrick were so good in training camp that I don't think you want that guy to really be a part of free agency again when he fits your system. And from a cultural standpoint, there's been no issues that I've been told from anybody in the organization about his diligence, his ability to help guys from a special assistant coach standpoint. So you kind of hope that you do right by him, and he will obviously return the favor on the field with a full season with Patrick Mahomes next season.
Yeah, so, and I'm going to rope this question from Keith McLean in here. Do you believe Hollywood Brown will actually play real snaps in the playoffs? And so I'm going to tie this in here for this. He does. I don't know. We don't know. I think we are getting close to the point where you should be getting some check, not we, but the Chiefs are going to be, they're always going to be in contact. But we are at a pretty pivotal point, like six-ish weeks post-op here. We are out. You start to get some good feedback coming and saying, hey, you can now get into your actual physical, like the real physical therapy, the stuff that translates to football rather than just being able to function day-to-day life, right? Like we're kind of getting to that point. So they should have a general idea of what he's got going on. It seems like there was some momentum, just hearing from James Palmer a little bit, that the Chiefs maybe feel like that's more of a possibility. Not saying he's going to, not saying they said he's going to, just that's a possibility that he could be ready come playoff time. If that's the case, you get him for the playoffs. One, he's still his first year with this team, right? Like it's not like, yes, they had the whole training camp, they had a preseason snap. He's got some familiarity, but it's not like you're dropping in a veteran of this offense necessarily. So there might be some work up to it. But if you go through the playoffs, Hollywood Brown performs well in the limited game sample size, I think that bodes really well to what you're saying there. And hey, Hollywood Brown should maybe ask for another 1-year deal, maybe ask for a little bit more money, knowing that he didn't get the full season to set himself up for the really big contract that he was hoping for. Yes. But if you can parlay a good playoff stretch, if you're available, into just some production, some efficiency, that probably goes a long way in saying, hey, maybe I get this 1 year, $7.5-9 million fully guaranteed deal, or, with the bonuses and stuff that will pay off. So I think the playoffs will be big for him, not only for the Chiefs, but also for him in terms of trying to leverage himself into a better contract from the Chiefs specifically next year.
They need the 1 seed for this to happen. They really, really, really need the 1 seed. That's, on the priority list, it's still low. But given they have this 6-0 start with guys just coming in and out with all these injuries, his chances of getting on the field for the postseason increase, I think, exponentially with another week of practice and with the team not having to play in the wild card round, right? So if you get the 1 seed, you get a home game, you don't have to travel, and he gets more time to get the timing to try to get up to speed with the rest of the guys on the offense to be available for a role, not like a full starter. He's not going to be running like 40 routes, I don't think, but man, can you give us 2 plays in the postseason every game that can like help the offense, that can give us more options? There's definitely a case for that to happen. I love the question just because I think at some point in like late November, early December, I think guys on the team are going to actually start to realize that, like, man, one of the benefits to my body getting better is obviously winning the 1 seed, getting a little bit more rest, more treatment. Obviously, that helped Travis Kelce last year because he didn't play in the regular season finale, and then he was excellent in the postseason. But man, if I can do that and we get Hollywood back, and he's gonna be, in sync, or he's gonna have one-on-one opportunities because there's still Travis Kelce, there's still, DeAndre Hopkins, Isaiah Pacheco might be back, or should be back by then, I should say, with the screen game involving Noah Gray and Kareem Hunt, and obviously Xavier Worthy. It's a nice thought, but go out there, embarrass the Las Vegas Raiders, be 7-0, and have a real inside track to the 1 seed, because that will increase the odds that yes, Hollywood Brown will play a significant snap in the postseason.
Yeah, that bye's big, especially without having a bye later in the season. You have that early season bye too. That extra week off is going to mean a lot for the players. Then, Big Yeti, disrespectfully, for Nate, can we get a noise if the Chiefs traded for Myles Garrett? What is the noise reaction?
What? Come on, hey, blow up a phone, blow it up. I mean. Good God, man. Can you imagine? No, stop it. I think if I was a commissioner, if I was Raj, I'd be like, now look.
Gonna pull the
another pick. Yeah, another pick. I got to go David Stern. We cannot have this happen. Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, and Myles Garrett. No, stop it, okay? And, by the way, the largest human being, Mike Pennell, just devouring every run gap, no, stop it. That would be hilarious. I want what's right for Myles Garrett, though. Has he played one postseason game? Obviously, they got to the postseason last year. He has not had a moment. And let me tell you something, Cleveland. It's a wrap. It's over. I mean, obviously, that's why you guys traded Amari Cooper. The man snapped his Achilles. It's over, okay? I'm here for giggles. I'm here for Jameis Winston going 2020. Give me a 2020 season. 20 touchdowns, 20 interceptions, and a truncated season. Obviously, he's the last quarterback to go 30-30, and not the Bobby Witt version. I gave the ball to the other team 30 times. So I would love if he got traded, but I there's no way. If I'm Roger Goodell, I'm letting that man come to Kansas City. There's no bleeping way.
Yeah.
Great question.
No, that's a good one. Yeah, no, with you there. He's played 3 postseason games in his career, which, God, that just seems so sad.
That's what I anticipated. Wow.
Yeah, they had.
Well, I guess the Baker
back in 2020.
Yes, it's the Baker Mayfield. They went out and destroyed the Steelers, which is basically the end of that's the moment that really ends the Ben Roethlisberger era. That is the end, and then he stayed on the team for another year or two. Crazy. And then they came up to Kansas City, and the Chiefs. We the reason the Chiefs can embarrass Nick Bosa is because they did it to Myles Garrett. They just said, "Hey, man, you're not." We're running right at you, and we're running right by you. And by the way, see that screen? Here's another screen. See that screen? Here's another screen. They really removed him from the game, and it wasn't Myles Garrett that obviously laid the hit on Patrick Mahomes that led to his first concussion in his career, even though they didn't want to tell you that at the time. It's like, no, he's concussed, guys, and he still wants to come back on the field. He's probably a different cat. But yeah. I don't even want to look up his stats in that game because it was not good. It was not great. So okay. So 3 postseason games. I just want him to have another moment because he's so good.
Yes. He feels like a guy that Cleveland, even when they know it's time to blow it up, that they need to. You gotta build around that guy. You gotta keep that guy around. He's the guy that's gonna keep your defense where it is while you get whatever quarterback that you can eventually muster to come in back there to get up to speed. So that way you're not dropping him in and telling him to do everything. Look at Jane Daniels is his own enigma right now because it's not like Washington has a lot going on around him. It's kind of just him. But you look at other good situations, there's other things around them to save Caleb Williams. The Bears defense is really good right now. And then you have this weapon. Like, you got to get stuff around him. Myles Garrett's a piece you don't trade away. We got one more here, then we're going to get to a break. Casey from KC asks, are there, for you specifically, because I don't get to talk to the Chiefs players very often, who are the players on the team that teammates have really made big steps forward in their play this year? So, like, is there anybody in the locker room that pops up from other players that they think has kind of developed a little bit this season?
It was going to be Jalen Watson.
Let's go. I mean,
Yeah, it was gonna be Jalen. I obviously last week we came out. But last week a story I did on Leo Chanel that I had been working on for about a month came out. Just the fact that he is the most underrated guy on the defense. And so a lot of the defensive players would tell you Leo Chanel and Jalen Watson. Those would be the two that I've really like. I mean, the reason the Chiefs are top 5 defense are because of those two guys, right? Because there are literally no holes in the defense now. So those will be the two guys. Everybody still loves Jaden Hicks. Excuse me. Why did I say Jalen? Dang it. Everybody loves Jaden Hicks. But he's only played a limited amount of snaps. Great interception. When they needed it at a critical point against the 49ers. You think on offense, I've always said that he was going to be better than people thought in the draft, and I kid you not, man. When you get it right on day one, doesn't it make you feel great? Doesn't it make you feel amazing? It's still a bad thing that he led the team in receiving on Sunday. But look, Noah Gray only gets better year after year after year after year, and I would probably say he's one of the guys that jumps out to you from various teammates. Like, I think Travis Kelce has really loved the fact that as much as his season has been sort of weird, he has appreciated the idea that there's clips out there, like if you watch them, there's clips out there where Travis Kelce is just hyping the hell out of Noah Gray because Noah Gray has been consistent. And it might be my greatest achievement as a quote unquote draft analyst when I said, I saw they showed his mixtape and I said, oh baby, we got one here. And then I had to think for like an hour about like, okay, what is his nickname? What am I going to give him? Cause I gotta put it upon you, to let everybody know that you're my guy, you're my guy. Like, I was pretty sure on Isaiah Pacheco just because the vibes were insane. You would have thought, guys, Isaiah Pacheco had a better draft day party than Rashee Rice, than Xavier Worthy, than Patrick Mahomes, guys. You would have thought this man was like a top 5 pick. He was taken in the 7th round. It was amazing. Had the whole hood out. The whole neighborhood was out. And he knew he was going to be a star. And I was just like, I can't deny this, man. But when it came to Noah Gray, very underrated, very like, I'm a Duke guy. I'm smart. I'm not going to say anything. I'm from Massachusetts. Stop asking me questions. And so I just said, hey, he's a majestic white horse on a sandy beach. And kids, I haven't had a better one since.
It's perfect. No, that is perfect. And I love getting the nickname out there. I love getting it all set so that way everybody knows that is how you claim your guy, so everybody always remembers. We will be right back with some more questions right after this.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
With big wireless providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/KCSN21. That's mintmobile.com/KCSN21. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/KCSN21. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
Welcome back to 21 Questions, our podcast where we are answering your guys' questions of all sorts that you were asking us in the KCSN Discord. I am here with Nate Taylor, and we are going to keep on rolling through these. We got one from friend Christian Gumminger. Are Chiefs fans still Tuscaloosa fans, or have we figured out that winning every game by one score is just the brand now? Oh boy. Hey, listen. I think that, I mean, like this, I am 100% at fault for this. I struggle. I'm living in the moment. Everything that I see with fandom, for me is about limiting the possibility that the team loses one game when it matters. So like everything I ever watch, you say, I'm watching a Sunday game on week 7. Yes, I'm appreciating a good play, but I'm also watching to say, hey, do I think that's going to be an issue in January when the game actually matters? And if so, I'm going to say something about it. And I know that is not how every fan processes a game or talks about it. So I am very much in the brand of fan that is like, I don't know if I love all these ugly one-score games. This could be a lot better. However, I think it is hilarious that the Chiefs continue to play like C-plus games, but they force their opponent to play a C-plus game, and then they're just better than them at doing that.
Yes. Perfect. The way you describe that is excellent because it's so true. It's like, hey, why don't we give Kirk Cousins 3 times in the fourth quarter to beat us? And it's like, oh yeah, that still plays into our hands. Just like
right.
What?
It's like that, yeah.
So, yeah, I think most fans have graduated from Tuscaloosa fan, and I understand that because 2 reasons. Okay, I started coming up with that in 2020 when that was the best Chiefs team to this day I've ever seen, and it's so unfortunate that they will get lost in history. Because kids, they were 14-1 with Patrick Mahomes as their starter, okay? And the one game they lost might have been the greatest game in the John Gruden, Derek Carr era, right? That's the one that they circled the wagons at Arrowhead. So it was crazy because they, your team had just won the Super Bowl for the first time in 50 years, and you wanted more. You were hungry. You were bloodlust for domination. And the team really did that for a large part of that season. They absolutely embarrassed the Buffalo Bills in that AFC Championship game. But of course, as we all know, injuries is really what beat them. I know some people will say, well, Tom Brady is against Patrick Mahomes. And I'm like, hey, man, ask Brady to play in front of that offensive line. Ask him to do that, okay? That game was not fair from the moment it started, okay? And it was essentially a home game for the Bucs. So that's the first reason, right? That I just sort of noticed that, like, fans really wanted more, which reminded me of, obviously, Alabama fans once Nick Saban established that we out here getting dubs, okay? And now it's not about how we win. It's how much do we win? Like, I don't want to beat Ole Miss by 10. Hell no. I want Ole Miss off the map. And you just think, like, is it winning fun? And they're like, no. I want to win by more. And so I just sort of noticed that in the 2020 season. And it sort of continued in 2021 because you still had Tyreek Hill, you still had Travis Kelce, like, you still had all the guys. And the defense was, slowly deteriorating. I think most fans have graduated for the second reason, which is, ain't nothing like the original. Oh, ain't nothing like the original. I mean, I wasn't there when Coke first came out, but I understand what people mean when they're like, nah, man, you weren't there when Coca-Cola first hit the market. Guys, that poor man who signed up for that job, his team literally played for the national championship last year, and they about to try to fire him in year one. It's crazy, but they're crazy. So I don't think Chiefs are Tuscaloosa fans anymore because the originals are back, baby. You lose to Vanderbilt. Like, it's so, like, obviously the playing field is different. It's the NIL, all the stuff, the transfer portal, everything's different than the Nick Saban era when, again, Nick, I want to win by 40 every week. Get out of here, okay? Now, the second thing is, because everything's on an even playing field, these are college kids. It makes sense that you have an absolute excellent game plan against Georgia, and you beat them fair and square, legitimate, in prime time, at home. That was an awesome game to watch. Of course, did they even watch film of Vanderbilt the next week? No. What is that? Oh, these are college kids. And you can't go from 5-star to 4-star back to another 5-star on the bench. You just can't. So it makes sense that, of course, they would lose to a Vanderbilt team that kind of, put their season on the line against Alabama. Now, the second loss, I can't help you with that one, okay? And that's why they're pissed. I can't help you with that one. Hey, DeBoer, please win every game out. Get to the play. Hey, don't get to the playoff. Win the playoff.
Gonna win it.
What?
Also, here's an idea. I don't care, but here's an idea just by Alabama fans. Maybe your wide receivers don't take jumpers on a QB sneak. Maybe they fake a route or just something. Like, don't take jumpers on the field. Again, I don't care, but I can tell you who does. Those Alabama fans for the past decade and a half who want Nick Saban, who would have ran onto the field and speared one of his wide receivers for trying that. That headset would have been thrown so hard and so far. It's like, you gotta take a step back, man. Listen. And we're going on a tangent now, but DeBoer's not in trouble. Here's the thing. DeBoer came from lower level college, then to Washington in the Pac-12. He has two good games, had two big, not good, big games a year that he had to play. Two big games that he could functionally lose because of the talent difference on his teams. He's in the SEC now, and things are getting more evened out because of the NIL, because of the transfer rules. He now has 8 big games a year. You can't just spend a month game planning for Georgia to beat him and then think you're going to steamroll everybody else. And I think that's an adjustment he's going to have to make. Hopefully he holds on to that job for long enough to make the adjustment, because I do like Kalen DeBoer. I just think that mentally he has to make that adjustment. Yeah, he can't just plan for Oregon all season long and skate by everybody else. You got to be ready week after week where he's at.
Yeah.
All right. We got some, let's see, where I got some other questions now. I have lost entirely where I'm. Okay. I saw it up here from Tank the Frank here. What is one question? He asked, what's the worst question? I want to say, what's the question that you get asked the most by fans that you just kind of get tired of answering? Is the one for me, one that comes to my mind. And this is relevant right now because of the Sky Moore news and stuff like that. But when you try to have a real conversation about hey guys, this player, not just Sky Moore, but this player plays because he can do X and Y. And they ask him to do X and Y. And then they come back and say, yeah, but do they not ask him to do Z, or he's so bad at Z, doesn't matter. So for Sky Moore, he's playing because he knows where to go and he can walk. They don't have somebody else they think can do that. What? Are they not asking to catch the football? Of course they're asking him to catch the football, and he's not doing it. That's the problem, and that's why he's their 6th or 5th wide receiver. But guess what? That doesn't change the fact that they are asking him to do these other 2 things that nobody else does as good as him. And he's asking to do stuff. So
right, and he's willing to be a kickoff returner. Right, that was another thing that with this new kickoff rule that he had a little bit more job security because he could be a kickoff returner. No, it's so well said. But what about
guys have non-sexy roles? It's fine. They have to play them. There's guys that have to. Justin Watson has 7 targets and he's ran the 2nd most routes on this team. Why are you guys yelling about him too? It's just guys are asked to do certain things. If they're the best at it, they're going to put them out there. Doesn't mean they're good players. I'm not going to sit here and defend Sky Moore as an excellent draft pick or player right now from where we've been, but he knows where to run. He knows when's the last time you saw Sky Moore have to have somebody come over and tell him where to go, right? He knows where he's got to be. Can he catch it if he gets there on a passing route? No, but he can go make his blocks. He lines up right. It's there's a role he fills. So I don't need to be asked if he's not asked to catch the ball or hey, don't you think that Justin Ross or anybody, insert any other player, could take his job? Like, maybe, but also if they could, they probably would.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a question that I get like annoyed by the most. Usually I think hopefully when people hear this, it rings true. Because again, it's not my experience. I'm trying my best, but like I love talking to fans. I'm obviously in the parking lots before kickoffs and probably more than I should be. But look, man, I love the vibe. I love talking to fans. I don't think people annoy me a ton. It's one thing. I also know I'm in a different position too, because I'm trying to share as many stories as possible with our audience. Obviously with, people who subscribe to The Athletic. So one thing that I think is tough for me, and it's not about the fans, it's more about me, right? But if somebody comes up to me and complains about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it's hard for me to separate my own relationship with Clyde, which is like a roller coaster. It's kind of up and down. Because, I don't know why he blocked me on Twitter. Actually, I do know, but I didn't know for a long time why he blocked me on Twitter.
You're blocked too?
And yeah. Oh yeah. And I think some of that was for his own mental health, but I told him, I was like, I'm a reporter. Like, I'm not bashing you on the internet. In fact, I'm one of the bigger defenders of you, but like, whatever. So our relationship has always been, interesting. I think it's at a good place. But, a lot of fans came up to me, and they still come up to me to this day, and they say, why don't they it sucks because you're told one thing during the draft, right? So sometimes we're right on Noah Gray or Leo Chenal, or Leo Chenal just tells you this is what I'm going to do, and then tells it better than most people. Violence and physicality. No one has a problem with Leo Chenal. So it was like, well, why don't they pass him the ball more? Or why isn't he playing? Or why isn't he like, again, it's tough for me to separate my own relationship with him, but then also trying to understand that like he is a human being. And I just think no one on the roster is less of a human being to fans than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And so when he told us in training camp, but I kind of had an idea what his illness was. But him saying it, I think, was beneficial for him, beneficial for us. I've tried to explain it as best I can since. He also got married over the off season. But a lot of people came up to me and was like, why wasn't he at the parade? And I was like, man made a decision. I don't know. I don't know. So sometimes you have to say, I don't know, which doesn't make me or probably the fan feel good. But I also know too that like we're a lot closer to the end with Clyde's time in Kansas City than we were at the beginning. And he might be misunderstood the entire time because nobody, for whatever reason, remembers that he was having an excellent rookie season and that he got hurt against the New Orleans Saints where his body got put in a freaking pretzel. And to his credit, he came back and played in that Super Bowl and actually played pretty well. But his body has never been the same. He's obviously had post-traumatic trauma. The parade was not great for him. And so it's just, he is a complex individual that I'm almost defending now for fans because I just want people to recognize the humanity that he has, because I think most fans do recognize that these players are human. But when it comes to Clyde, that's the one that just jumps out to me the most, where it's just like, well, what's wrong with him now? And it's just like, hey, man, like this job is really hard, really stressful. He's the smallest guy in the offense now once Jerick McKinnon left. And, how would you deal with the idea of Isaiah Pacheco coming in and, essentially being a version of who you should have been, but the sport is dangerous, it's violent, you get hurt, and but everybody loves him in the locker room, which again is another thing that I think is a schism, a difference between what is seen publicly versus what is internally. Like Patrick Mahomes loves Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I totally understand why. He's just not the player that he was supposed to be, and I think he and me and everybody else will tell you sometimes that happens. But I think humanity got lost in the fray with him throughout much of his time with the team.
Yeah, no, I agree. We'll never know the answer, but like that hip injury, I really do think set back a lot more than what fans give credit for, because not even the performance obviously was better. It's just he moved differently than he does now. Like from that moment on when he came back, things were just never the same. And the information on what actually happened was never like fully out there for us, like for fans to see, right? But like I just think back, like look at that had significant hip injuries. Like a lot of them never came back the same. It's just it's a weird joint to have to run with and play football with. So that stinks. I do know that everybody in the locker room likes him, and like so I always keep that in mind. And like it's kind of the same thing with other players. Like, hey, it just some guys don't pan out, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you have to hate the person.
Right. It sucks. It sucks. I mean, I remember talking to Breland Speaks 2 off seasons ago and feeling like that was therapeutic sessions for him. And I'm just a normal dude. I'm just, trying to rewrite history in a sense of like, what did we miss at the time? What was he going through? Obviously he's like the back-to-back defensive player of the year in the USFL. But like, I mean, it's hard, man. It's hard. So I don't know if Clyde will ever say that hip injury kind of torpedoed his career. But I love the fact that you make it clear that like he is not. That's a great way of saying it. He has not moved the way he did earlier that rookie season since that injury.
Yep, and that's always what I'm going to remember there. All right, we got 3 more questions here. We got Brad from Batchelder Family Farms, also friends of KCSN at the Fantastic Meats. At this point, should the Chiefs have kept Kadarius Toney instead of Sky Moore?
I love this.
My answer, but I have had, you said that you like being, like you kind of recall some things that you were right about where somebody being good. Kadarius Toney is a player that from the moment I saw him even start to be talked about in the draft when he was a junior at Florida, not even the senior, not even going to the Senior Bowl and watching him and talking to him there, I said, no, not going to work out. And every step he has taken in the NFL, for many of the same reasons that I thought in college, it hasn't worked. So I could not distance myself as a fan of a team further away from the Kadarius Toney experience fast enough. So no, I will take 10 Sky Moores over the Kadarius Toney experience.
And see, kids, this is where we differ. Because I can understand why people get in trouble. I see talent, and I'm willing to give another chance. God, he's so freaking talented. And I know people are going to be like, well, Nate, it doesn't matter if he can't translate it onto the field, if he can't be a responsible human being. Let's not forget, kids. I think I can tell this story now. Let's not forget, kids, that the morning of the AFC Championship game, this man went on Instagram Live and mother bleeped people with his newborn daughter was just born. Oh, he was the reason he wasn't with the team that weekend. It was because his firstborn child, his daughter, was out here living, breathing, and he went on Instagram Live to get some stress on. Okay, and then a week later in Las Vegas was like, I'm ready to play. God, I love him. Freaking love that man. I love him. There are people in the organization who loved him. There are people in the organization who despise Kadarius Toney.
Yep. I mean, I'm not surprised.
They were telling me at the same time during the summer.
I get it.
Go ahead.
No, I get it. Like you watch him, and it's just movement. You watch a guy move, he moves differently than other players, and then like there is the baseline skill set to catch footballs and get open. So therefore, you say there's enough talent here that we can make it work. My brain, as a football player, this is not feeling. My brain is a football like analyst trying to gauge these college players. Like this dude's never run like a precise route consistently in his life. It can happen. It's just not consistent, and I've seen enough that it's never going to happen. And I get banking on the talent. I get thinking that somebody can develop him. And hey, that's how you get a first-round pick that, while I didn't agree with it, it's not like it's the craziest thing you've ever seen. It's not like the Titans taking the Georgia offensive tackle off of like 6 games of play or whatever who never played in the NFL, right? Like it made sense. It's just it was always going to be a long shot for me. And like everything he has done in the NFL, I'm like, see, every time you take a half step forward, it's like 3 steps backwards, both on and off.
It really is. It really is. If it were up to me, like if I was in the room with Andy and Matt Nagy and Brett Veach, I would probably say Kadarius Toney will help us in October and November in a way that I'm not sure Sky Moore will. And that's based on what I saw at training camp, right? Now, Kadarius Toney, again, got hurt in training camp. It happens.
That soft tissue cannot keep up with that movement. That's what's going on there. His soft tissue cannot keep up with how he moves at all.
So if you wanted, again, to Matt's point, if you wanted the steadier player, if you wanted the more consistent player, if you wanted the more well-rounded individual who makes more consistent decisions as a professional athlete, I know what the answer is. But I also know I just want him, like, I'm mesmerized by talent. I mean, look, to the Lord's credit, thank you, Lord. To the Lord's credit, I am not, I understand when some people are like, man, I dated her because she was so pretty, but she's chaotic and a nightmare and a terrible individual and a human being, but she's so pretty. Like, I get it. My wife is very nice to me, but I might be the guy at the bar that's like, I'm willing to give her another chance. It's like,
no,
that's just my personality, and that's my fault, and that's like you have to understand where your strengths and weaknesses are. My weakness is, did you see the punt return in Arizona? Because I did, and I'm never letting that kid out the building.
No, 100%. I mean, I get it. I get both sides of that too. All right, we got 2 more. Hokie Chief, I guess slightly more serious. I don't know here. Hokie Chief, what do beat reporters from other teams think about the Chiefs jerseys? The lack of their alternates? Do they just consider them classics and like them? Or are they like, those are kind of boring, not boring, but bland. We'd like to see something else. Not boring, just like a little bit like, hey, we've seen it for a long time, right? So do other teams' reporters that you talk to, you're going to rub elbows with other people from other organizations? Because Chiefs fans are a lot of them are very much like, no, this is what we've always had. We love it. I think you see a lot of fan bases for other teams get excited when new stuff comes out. Do other teams think the Chiefs have kind of been stuck in the mud with their uniforms for a while?
Some people have asked me, and then I've had to explain who Clark Hunt is.
When did someone get number 0, Nate?
Never. I honestly think I can say on the record, if there is a other number to select from, 0 will not be handed out. So I think it's fascinating because it's almost a different scenario, but I see both sides of it. Like, I would like to see something fresh, something new. I understand that. I even think Mark Donovan, the team president, is like, I can take some notes. We can do something, but tradition and legacy, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I'll tell you, kids, those jerseys, that uniform is not broke. I remember, what was it? Was it the Dick Vermeil era? I think it was the Dick Vermeil era when they brought back the red pants for road games. The red helmet, white jersey, red pants. Or maybe that was Gunther Cunningham. I can't remember, but it was somewhere in that era. And that was like a big deal at the time, the fact that they had brought the old red pants from the AFL for the road games. That is, ladies and gentlemen, the last time they did anything relevant with their jerseys. Because they were playing the Vikings in 2019, I guess just to dunk on the Vikings, they changed their face masks from white to gray because their face masks were gray or silver during war. Why? Why, guys? Why? I think it's mostly because the equipment department was like, can we just do something fun? And the ownership was like, yes, because it's tied to Super Bowl IV. It's tied to legacy. We will do it this one time,
Have a great face mask.
I don't think people realize how bad the Seattle Seahawks uniforms look. Because when they roll out them traditional blue and silvers, child. How you feel about the Orange Crush tells me a little bit something about you from a personality standpoint. Those things hit, man. Those things hit. So the Denver Broncos
got me the other day. The Chiefs trade for DeAndre Hopkins. I'm going back and watching the Titans stuff. The last year, they wore the Oilers. The Oilers, that's the picture. There's no coincidence that's every picture that everyone used for DeAndre Hopkins when the Chiefs traded for me. They're all yeah. Those Oilers, yeah. So like sometimes the stuff doesn't need to be changed because it doesn't get better. Other times it does, right?
Yes.
Some people love okay, listen, I'm gonna get myself in trouble here. Some people love the Bucks creamsicle stuff, buddy. Like those needed to go when they went. They had to go. That just wasn't it. They had to go. Sometimes it's the right move,
buddy.
Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not. And so yeah, I get it. I'm also, hey, the Chiefs want to throw some new stuff out there every now and then. I would not hate it because I personally am not tied to the uniform. That does not hinder anything I think about the team. But I get where they come from. I just do wish that they'd be a little bit more innovative with it.
Think about it this way. Packers uniform, never going to change. Cowboys uniform, never going to change. Steelers uniform, never going to change. NCT Chiefs uniform, probably never going to change.
Yeah. Makes sense. So our last question here. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said the last thing is, so if Clark Hunt, obviously with the legacy of Lamar Hunt, considers the franchise in that same echelon, which is lofty. I mean, that's high, boys. I mean, the Cowboys uniform is never going to change. And if you consider yourself in the same equal, then I understand why it's probably not going to change. You're not going to be the Seattle Seahawks. You're not going to be the Los Angeles Rams, who, by the way, man, their uniforms have gotten so much better than what they used to be, right? The Patriots, I don't love the new ones. I don't love the old ones, so I get it, right? Like, you know, the Cleveland Browns, excellent uniform. Do never change it. Their helmet should be brown. Actually, no, let it be orange. So if you consider yourselves, I mean, and the Chiefs really think that they are like the Lambeau Packers of the AFL. So Arrowhead, tradition, legacy, uniform, like great coach. It's probably not going to change.
Yeah, no, I think everybody needs to understand that, and you can still want something. I think you got to understand that at least for a good long while. And I don't even know an alternate doesn't change stuff. So maybe we throw a bone out there eventually, but I think you're still a ways away from that even being on a possibility horizon. Final question from Arrow here: who would win in an Oklahoma drill? The Rizzler or Haley Welch from Talk Tua? Are you familiar with our internet celebrities right now, Nate?
Yes, I am. I understand that. Okay, I understand. How tall is a Rizzler? Just.
I mean, he's 7, so he can't be very tall.
I understand from a leverage and probably a want to, he has the advantage. I love this question. Tucker D. Franklin says he is 8 years old. Shout out to him. How can you be 8 and have a name called the Rizzler? That's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
So I think he has the traditional advantage. What's our girl's name again? What's her government name?
Her name is Haley Welch.
Haley Welch. Now you want some? You're talking about want to. If I told Haley, you can get more famous if you win this Oklahoma drill. Oh, want to's gonna be there. Okay. Now she probably needs to get in the gym, get that lower body right. I'm going to give her the advantage though, based off of quickness, length, and want to.
I love it. I love the breakdown. Here's the secret. They don't think they let you do Oklahoma drills anymore. Here's the secret. I remember I played, no.
I don't want to see somebody die. That's why we don't do the Oklahoma drill anymore.
I played on the line of scrimmage when I played football. I was a big boy, and we had to just still do Oklahoma drills, and we didn't even do hey, we're not trying to score a touchdown. We're just trying to see who's physically dominant over the other person. And while I was a big boy, there was plenty of other bigger guys than me out there. Here's the trick, though. When you're laying on your back, if you get up quicker than the other person, you're going to win. Okay? So I think Haley's getting up off the ground a little faster than the Rizzler. It's over. I don't even know if he's getting to his feet before she's scampering on by at this point in time, right? That's the whole trick, is who's getting up the fastest in this drill. I I unfortunately have seen more of the Rizzler than I want to. Like only a couple videos, but it's more than I want to. I have zero chance that fraud is getting up off the ground in this Oklahoma drill. Give me Haley Welch. Tucker is so upset with my decision right now. He's so upset.
I love the fact that you do with like the old school way, like lay on your back, get up, collision. Like, yes, guys, look, ladies, if ladies are listening, I want you to know that we are idiots. Okay, men are idiots because it is idiotic that we asked young boys and young men to murder themselves in a drill that
tiny little alley.
It ain't about how many look. And remember, you get chewed out if you ask this question, Coach. Be straight with me. How many times is this going to replicate itself in an actual fucking football game? How many times? How many times? There's 22 players on the field, Coach. When is this going to happen? We still did it for decades.
And over.
Just giving ourselves mild concussions in practice for no reason. Because of toughness and want to. Come on, Coach. There's a thing called a blocking sled. And, a scrimmage and like a jamboree against another human being who I'm told not to like because they got a different jersey on than mine. Like, there's so many other ways to do this. Yet, we continued to do it for decades. Part of me misses that one Oklahoma drill where you knew pads and helmets were going to pop. And then I hear it and I think about it and I remember seeing it and I said, I don't ever need to do that or see that ever again.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, it's like fun like the first time you do it, and then quickly thereafter, you go through your second time through the line, because it's not just once. You had a line, you're going again, and you sit there and you go, now wait a second, what am I accomplishing here? When am I going to be getting up off my back in this tiny space, running full speed for like the 5 steps that I get, and running into somebody else who said, this doesn't exist, but boy, did we do it. We did it for a lot of years, and I mean, it's good that it's gone, but I still always love the concept, and I think the reason it got so popular is everybody can theoretically look at it and say, oh, I know what an Oklahoma drill is. I can pit 2 of anything against each other in this drill and see who wins. That's cool, so we can just apply it, and we're going to make these 8-year-olds do it with each other all the time because they certainly don't need to develop their brains or anything. That's wild times, man.
And when the coach would say, hey, switch with him, so he can get an even better matchup. Are you insane?
Oh, man, yeah. No, the last time I remembered, last little bit here, I remembered we had a center on my team. I was pretty good at this drill because I was big, but I could get up quick. And we had a center on our team. I got up faster than him, ran over to him. I was about ready to blast him because he was just barely kind of getting up and getting to his first step. Problem is, he's like 5'7", and then my weight, kind of hard to get below a 5'7" person that's the same weight as you, and he put me on my ass, and I was like, oh, I don't like this drill anymore. This wasn't fun. I took a helmet to the chin, and I sat down, and I was like, that's not as fun anymore. Why do we do this? Obviously, we still had to. But yeah, that was like the biggest time I took a big old loss in that drill. And I was like, oh, wait a second. What are we doing here, guys?
When the coach, hey, coach, if you put 2 of our best players in this drill, coach, we can go to the district playoffs. Hell, we might go sectionals. Or we could go winless if you continue to let these 2 guys hit each other.
What do we, man? All right, guys. Thank you. We appreciate all the questions from you guys for 21 questions. This was a fantastic time. Nate, thank you for your time. We loved all the questions, guys. If we didn't get to your question, or if you have one that pops in your mind, just make sure you get it in the Discord. 2 more people from KCS, and we'll be doing another one of these every single week as we keep on going. So we appreciate it, guys. And let's see if we have a nice, fun Chiefs victory over the Raiders. A little bit of a revenge game. Chiefs don't get a lot of those. So, eyes open.
Yes, sir.